District 33 Assemblyman Carmelo Garcia discussed a new bill with Hudson County View named after fallen Jersey City police detective Melvin Santiago. Santiago was tragically gunned down in the parking lot of the Walgreens at 2395 John F. Kennedy Boulevard back on July 13th of last year, where his killer used the weapon he stole from an armed security guard working at the store. Garcia explained to Hudson County View how the bill came about.
The genesis of it came from the Hispanic Association of Law Enforcement Officials, the National Coalition of Law Enforcement Officials, where there was an examination on what took place on that tragic night with respect to young officer Melvin Santiago. It was a grave tragedy, and it came to light that under the Sora, the armed security guards did not have all the right training, which could have led to potentially diffusing that situation and avoid the tragedy that happened that evening. And that's what how this came about. That's what this bill is intending to do now. The purpose is to increase the education, the training, and the gun safety requirements for those armed security guards within establishments like the Walgreens and others.
When you say SORA, what does that stand for?
SORA stands for the Security Registration Officer Act. And of course it governs all of the armed security guards and security officers, which are the first line of communication for police officers on the scene. So when you have a situation like happened that fatal night, unfortunately, it created a tragedy. And if we had a bill like this in place, I can assure you that moving forward, we would protect more police officers and protect those also armed security guards from ensuring that the unthinkable happens when they are disarmed.
So what sorts of security and other preventive measures, training are we talking about here?
What we explored is that currently the law has a separation of in-house security officers versus that of security guards that are armed that do not fall under the Superintendent of State Police. This bill now would mandate that they fall under the Superintendent of State Police. With respect to training, it increases the number of hours for training purposes. And the most important is that the armed security guard that night had a level 1 holster, which means no protection at all. So a level 2, level 3 holster actually sets a locking mechanism in place and wouldn't allow that perpetrator to pull that gun out of that holster with no problem. That's what this will do more than anything, is ensure that these armed security guards must have a category level 2, 3 holster, and at this point it's level 3, to make sure that there is a full locking mechanism and a preventative measure that won't allow this to happen again. And so those are the 3-part approach in this bill to basically reform the SORA, and that's what we're working hard to accomplish. And all of the law enforcement agencies, associations, and unions have been very supportive, and other counterparts as well within the retail industry.
Garcia also noted that in an ideal world, the bill would become a law before the end of 2015, before then explaining why this bill was introduced 8 months after Santiago's death.
Well, there was an examination period. I think these situations have to be put under the microscope, and you had officers like Jeff Rodriguez and others who were very instrumental in looking into what happened here and why this tragedy and how it could have been prevented, what was avoidable. And when they looked at it, they saw that this was so pertinent. These issues came to light. And the family, by the way, was very supportive also with respect to this bill, and I have to thank them because, of course, without them, we would not make this possible, and it just was fitting to name it in his honor, the Melvin Vincent Santiago Law.
Finally, Garcia said that the Melvin Santiago bill would require armed security guards to be 18 years or older in order to be considered for employment.
Also, any person who violates the Security Officers Registration Act would in fact have stiffer penalties to it. There are consequences attached to it, and if you are 18 years or older, that is another requirement with respect to this particular bill. And the Superintendent of State Police would now oversee the in-house armed security guards and have those training requirements be certified by them. So that's what this bill will ultimately accomplish, is to protect and save lives of those in blue.
I'm John Heides with the Hudson County View, the eye of the community.